Pay close attention. The news you are about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yisrael Hawkins. Well, in the news this week, more people fleeing for their lives as wars drive them from their homes. Also, the food shortage in Yemen worsens as more people there now face starvation. And could China be the door for the U.S. into North Korea? Well, these stories and more, but first, grab your phone. We have something we'd like to tell you. Well, WikiLeaks continues to bring to light new information that the U.S. government would like to keep secret, and yes, it has to do with your phone. For the second time this month, the website exposed CIA-related information and says it has much more to follow.
Interesting. Well, the whistleblower published its most recent article under the name Dark Matter, which describes some of the tools used by the CIA to hack into Apple products. The article says that the CIA has been able to hack into iPhones for as long as a decade, including the ability to remotely download and upload files and apps onto your iPhone. Well, this is the second CIA-related leak that the website has made this month, and it promises much more.
Well, the tool that has drawn the biggest attention is called Night Skies. WikiLeaks stresses that this has been around since 2008 and is expressly designed to be physically installed onto factory-fresh iPhones. In other words, Catan, the CIA has been infecting the iPhone supply chain since at least 2008.
Wow. Well, the spyware comprises of three components, an implant, a listening post, and a post-processing program. Well, the implant will run undetected on the phone once it has been physically installed, allowing the CIA to monitor the phone for activity, including YouTube videos and browser history.
Once the information is collected, the Night Skies software sends the information to a pre-configured listening post, which is like a Dropbox for the data to be processed. Now, Night Skies has been described as powerful because it can access your address book, the SMS, conversations, and call logs, all for the purpose of uploading it to the CIA servers. Now, the agency could also execute commands on the iPhone remotely and download or upload any files onto the device. So it's quite a leeway there what they can do.
Oh yeah, pretty scary. Well, after exposing the CIA hacking capabilities by WikiLeaks, the so-called Vote 7, a number of tech giants, including Apple, said most of the described backdoors have already been dealt with through updates. Despite the 9,000 documents revealed by WikiLeaks as part of their CIA exposure, this is only 1% of what those behind the website claim they have in their possession.
Well, the smell of money is not the only thing in the air, as the Israeli government gave the go-ahead in February to legislation that would allow the export of medical-grade cannabis. Now, just in time for the Canatech conference in Tel Aviv, which showcases medical marijuana. Yuval Landslides, with the medical cannabis unit, the Israeli Health Ministry, said, "This is a real unique breakthrough which we have now here in Israel, and we are willing to share it. We are willing to share it," he said, "with all the countries."
Well, banking on the fact that other countries will want it, Israel is ready to produce it, kind of a supply and demand thing. U.S. lawyer Matthew Ginder, representing cannabis firms, said the medical marijuana industry is much larger than the U.S., and there's so much going on outside of the U.S. and in foreign countries, and the acceptance of medical marijuana throughout the world and opportunities that present themselves with the change in policy. So it's definitely going to grow from here.
Israel's cannabis producers have their sights set on a $50 billion, and you heard that right, Katan, $50 billion global market by the year 2025. Now, in the last year alone, $100 million is estimated to have gone into the patents, agro-tech startups, and firms developing delivery devices such as inhalers. Now, all of this has become very tempting to foreign investors. As the applications for medical marijuana grow, revenues are seen climbing into the hundreds of millions of dollars annually. So you see there pretty much the push behind all this.
Yeah, they're seeing green in more than one way.
That's right.
Well, as a side note, Jeff, the U.S. Is projected, the U.S., of course, only the U.S. is projected to consume around $20 billion worth of medical marijuana by 2020, only a mere 3 years away.
That's right, and that's where Israel is hoping to get into that market.
That's right.
Well, rains have been falling on the country of Peru for weeks now. Along with them has come severe flooding and landslides. The flooding has displaced over 110,000 people, 150 bridges have collapsed, and almost 2,000 kilometers of roads are now unusable. The country's president visited the hardest hit areas along the YPN River and told reporters they will be making plans to create channels for the river to prevent it from overflowing in the future.
Well, at the peak of the storm, eyewitnesses said the floodwaters were up to 1 meter high and carried away everything from homes to shops, animals, and pets. While the capital of Lima, which is in Peru, of course, is seeing the water begin to subside, the northern part of the country continues to be battered with rain.
Well, Uganda was already a country in need, but a new report published by the World Food Program and the Ugandan government paints an even bleaker picture for the East African nation. Now, the report indicates a new weather pattern is threatening to increase food insecurity for the country. The official figures show the drought conditions in 2010 and 2011 caused economic losses of $470 million. Now, those losses were specifically pertaining to food crops, cash crops, and livestock.
Well, the WFO country director spoke to the press about the situation, saying Kamunda is the most food insecure region in Uganda due to the combined impacts of high levels of poverty, low human development, and unfavorable climate and weather conditions. Officials are saying the country needs $406 million to alleviate effects of climate change over the next 5 years, but the cost of doing nothing is estimated to be between $3 to $6 million.
Well, starvation is not just an issue for Uganda. Other areas of Africa are being hit hard as well. Now let's turn now to YPN's Larry McGee, who has our story on food insecurity on the resource-rich continent of Africa. Larry, what's going on in that region?
Grabbing headlines this week is the newly formed nation of South Sudan, which is seeing many of its citizens flee the country as a result of escalating violence. Over 2 million refugees are said to have come out of the nation in search for safety, while humanitarians are reported to be working to provide food aid to 5 million still within the country and suffering starvation. Planes airdrop much-needed supplies to destitute residents. One plane load is reportedly capable of feeding 1,600 people for 30 days, but that is still insufficient, given some towns have populations of up to 50,000 people, all in need of assistance. The South Sudan emergency response is reportedly costing $1.5 million per day. Crowds gather to await airdrops, but some are still returning home empty-handed. Ration cards are being distributed ahead of each drop to try to ensure equitable distribution and to also provide a sense of assurance to awaiting residents in hopes of staving off fighting. Inside the crisis is one painful story after another inside the nation, which has been boiling with conflict since the 1950s. More than 2 million Sudanese residents were killed during its civil war. The U.S. was ultimately responsible for negotiating the separation of South Sudan amid great hopefulness and much excitement for the future. Those bright prospects have all crumbled as a result of infighting over oil, the ripple effect of which has been the severe famine, which most analysts are now calling man-made. This is because the resource-rich land is 90% farmable, but only 4% is currently being cultivated as a result of warfare. Stirring up thoughts of the crisis in Rwanda, the nation of South Sudan is being referred to as a killing field, with many of its citizens destitute and literally starving to death. Death is having its heyday not just in Africa, however. Lives are being lost all across the East, and there are cries of media apathy concerning widespread civilian bloodshed in locations such as Mosul. Graphic images of tragedies are leaking out and causing horror and concern as the American-backed Iraqi army continues its advance into western Mosul with the alleged intent of liberating the city from ISIS insurgents. The fierce fighting between government forces and ISIS mercenaries is causing a flow of refugees numbering in the thousands, a tragic phenomenon which media outlets are interestingly entitling the Mosul Exodus. Commentators say the mass movement is one of the largest battlefield exoduses of modern times, with almost 250,000 refugees fleeing for safety. The circumstances in the region are being described as desperate and brutal. Analysts report that everyone who sees an opportunity makes a run for it. And it is not just ISIS that they are running from. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Time, Jeff. Back to you.
Well, it sounds like they're really being hit hard with the lack of food, which is, of course, affecting them in many other ways. Hopefully, things will change in the future for them. Well, as we continue, Yemen has been hit hard from the ongoing warring. Children seem to be suffering the most as a result of this. In fact, one little report came out about a young child, Uday Faisal, who was only 5 months old, and at that age he weighed a mere 5.3 pounds as a result of malnutrition. Well, because of the dire situation that he was in and being so malnourished, Faisal died as a result. Well, over 300,000 children in Yemen face suffering death from malnutrition, while millions of others suffer from a lack of health care or clean water.
North Korea did what it labeled as simulated attack against U.S. air bases in Japan. Now, the U.S. had initially detected one launch, but later found out it was actually 5 missiles simultaneously launched by North Korea. Now, the first one failed, but the others reached their maximum range of 600 miles and crashed into the Sea of Japan. Although the missiles weren't nuclear capable or very accurate, they were small and mobile and caught the U.S. intelligence by surprise. Now, North Korea fired them in a way to confuse missile defense systems, and of course apparently it worked because they thought only one, but there was actually 5.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, this test falls on the heels of an upcoming military exercise between the U.S. and South Korea. These drills are always met with North Korea acting out angrily, and of course U.S. officials expect to see more missile launches in response.
China responded to the launches when the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hao Chunying said in a statement, "The current situation of the peninsula is very tensed. It is a touch-and-go situation, so we urge relevant parties to exercise calmness and restraint to avoid mutual provocations and adventurous actions." Now, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said that any selfish action in the peninsula would only complicate the situation. They've also called for an investigation into the latest missile test by North Korea.
Well, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson had his first visit to Tokyo in an effort to create stability in the region. He stated in an address the attempt to bring North Korea to denuclearization has failed, so a different approach is required. But of course, he left the meeting without offering any other details as to how. He made this trip a little over a week after that recent launch of those missiles by North Korea. And even though those missiles fell short of their targeted range, a UN report showed that the North has significantly increased its technical know-how.
The U.S. has recently sped up an anti-missile defense system in South Korea, which China feels will be used against them. And since China is North Korea's only friend in the region, the U.S.'s Rex Tillerson needs them to help influence North Korea's leaders, but that relationship between the U.S. and China is off to a rocky start. Now, Tillerson said that the U.S. will be talking with China regarding North Korea and its nuclear program, so they're hoping that they're going to be able to help them out. We'll see.
Yeah. Will the Trump administration keep up the policy of a world without nuclear missiles? Christopher Ford, the U.S. Senior Director for Weapons of Mass Destruction, said that the administration is reviewing policies, including whether the goal of a world without nuclear weapons is a realistic objective. On the other hand, U.S. President Trump has already said that he wants the U.S. to have an unrivaled nuclear arsenal. So it doesn't look like that policy is really going to be pursued too hardly.
Well, Syria's foreign ministry has called on the UN Security Council to stop what it calls the massacres caused by the U.S. coalition in the Arab country. Now, Syria, in letters to the UN, has condemned 2 U.S.-led airstrikes, including one on a school in Homanshur near Raqqa City. They said that this was a new series of aggressions launched on Syria's sovereignty and on the safety of its territories in the name of combating terrorism. Now, they also expressed regret that the UN remained silent in the face of these attacks. The attack on the school left 30 people dead.
Well, Israel has threatened to destroy Syria's defense system if it is used against them. These remarks were made after Syria said that it fired several missiles at Israeli warplanes when Israel conducted a series of airstrikes around the ancient city of Palmyra.
London has been struck with yet another terrorist attack, leaving 4 people dead and 20 people wounded. A driver plowed a car in a group of pedestrians and stabbed a police officer. The attacker was shot to death by police. The driver sped along a bridge, hitting dozens before plowing into Parliament, setting off a frenzy of chaos. Now, the driver drove through Parliament security and stabbed a police officer before being shot to death by other security officers.
Well, the Turkish president, Erdogan, has given Europe a tongue lashing, saying that it is anti-Islam and anti-Turk. Erdogan said, of course, speaking to Europe, if you strike at us, we will strike back. We'll dish out the exact same treatment that we are given, and from now on, no foreign agents or any European countries will be allowed to act in our country, neither individuals or institutions. He also said that none of the European deals will threaten them, speaking of threaten Turkey, and he said in his conclusion of his statement that it's over. It's pretty much over.
Well, Erdogan didn't stop there. He also compared European leaders to Nazis, saying that they would revive gas chambers and concentration camps if they weren't ashamed, and that is their mentality. Now, Martin Schulz, the leader of the German Social Democratic Party, said, "We cannot accept Erdogan inciting hate with Nazi comparisons." Now, the Turkish foreign minister said the European Union and several European countries are bringing back the atmosphere of World War II. The same racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism.
Wow. Well, while this world is one at war, and famines and, of course, disasters are overtaking mankind everywhere, safety, trust, and peace is nowhere to be found except in one place, and by only one way, and taught by only one person, and that person is Yisrael Hawkins, the one sent to mankind to bring the message of peace, the prophesied destruction, and what you can do to save yourself and family from what the governments are calling mutually assured destruction. Well, to find out more, contact the House of Yahweh, and when you do, don't forget to request your free copies of the monthly newsletter and the Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, www.yahweh.com, www.yisraelhawkins.com, or www.yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website at www.ypnnews.com. For any emails, you can email at info@yahweh.com. Any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen. And once again, we'd like to remind you of 2 study programs that are on the market at this time. The first one being the Yisrael Says program. You can learn more by going to www.yisraelsays.com. And the second one is the Ask Yisrael program. And find out about that program by going to www.askyisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere, folks. Up next, the one prophesied to bring forth the message of peace for all mankind, Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katana Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.